If you still believe that your customer support department is solely responsible for client retention and to avoid churn, you're living in the 1900s. And I'm sorry to say, your business is not going to be around for very long. Hello, my name is Bill Arnold. I'm president of Prevail Marketing. You may find us at prevailmarketing.com. And every day we come to you with a video that is designed to give you some tips, some strategies, techniques, ideas, ways you can grow your business through better sales and marketing. And we've been talking about client retention. We started yesterday with a conversation about the scope of the problem. We're going to talk about today whose responsibility. And the next couple of days after that, we're going to talk about and give you actionable strategies, ways you could actually implement tomorrow to ensure that your client retention is reduced. Now, what should it be reduced to? We talked about that yesterday, but I'll recap very briefly. In the worst case scenario, client retention, I don't care if you're B2B, B2C, I don't care what your product line is. In the worst case scenario, you should have no more than 10% churn rate. But even that is not acceptable. 10% churn rate is the worst case. You should have 5 to 7% at the most. Ideally less than 5 if you do everything we're going to point out over the next couple of days. You will get less than 5. Absolutely. Why you're always going to have some churn? We talked about that because there's always going to be times where your client merges with somebody else. They get bought out. They go out of business. They get a new hire who comes in and wants to bring in their own system, their own prior vendors. You're always going to have some churn, but you should have no more than 5 or 7%. And to accomplish that, you have to take a new look at how you're treating client retention. You know, it used to be that companies looked and said, okay, we're going to put our time, effort, and talent and resources into client acquisition. We want that hockey stick growth. We want that superstar is going to come in here and really change the landscape. And they'd go out, they search the world, they interview, they brought in that superstar. And man, that superstar was great. That superstar delivered. Every quarter they would break their records. They would get substantial growth. But at the end of that quarter, the end of that half a year and the end of the year, they'd look at their books, they'd look at their numbers, and they say, well, we're really not growing that fast. Our profit's not even up that much. What are we doing wrong? And what they were doing wrong is they were not putting that same time, energy, talent, and resources into client retention. It takes that. You need that superstar. You need that rock star. Just as you do for client acquisition, you need that rock star for client retention. But even if you do that, even if you bring that rock star in to your customer support department, or rock stars, I should say, is that going to solve your problem? No, it won't. It's a good start, and you need to do it, but it's not going to solve your problem because it's not a customer support problem. It is a company problem. It's an organizational problem. From the very, very top, the CEO, the board of directors, right down to that new hire, every single one of them has a responsibility and a duty to help improve client retention. Now, we're going to talk about how they actually do that tomorrow. But we're going to touch base on the philosophy today because you have to develop a growth enablement mentality if you're going to create that to cause that to happen. Now, what is a growth enablement mentality? Many of you have heard about sales enablement. Back in 2015, 2016, I'm not sure the exact year, we went from marketing and sales alignment. Now we're going to get a little more powerful. We're going to get a little more demonstrative. We are going to now have a marketing sales enablement, which means they're going to be closely tied together, work on the same side of the fence, work together to make sure they get that growth. And they need to. And we talk about it and we do that. But you need a growth enablement. That is different. That is now more expansive. That is everybody in the organization, from the CEO down to the new hire, is responsible, has that responsibility to grow the company through client retention. And in fact, they look at every aspect of what they're doing and say, is this going to contribute to growth? So we're going to talk about what that retention lifestyle framework talks about in a bit, but I want to talk about a pet peeve. Something that I've seen in organizations which absolutely drive. It's the culture of poor management, culture of disrespect to your customers. I've seen organizations where in the chat, in the Slack, they would mock, they would ridicule their customers. They'd call them names. They laugh about them. They would complain about them. They would complain, oh, this customer, they're such a pain. They asking for this, they're asking for that. Oh my God, I wish they'd quit. First off, that should never be allowed in any organization. If you're in my organization and you say that about a customer, you better start looking for a new job. Customers should be respected. Their requests should be handled with the same respect that you'd want to be respected with. The golden rule applies. Treat others as you want to be treated. Now, I know someone's going to ask, well, what if that customer's rude and obnoxious and mean to your employees? Well, then I'll fire the customer. I have no problem doing that. I've done it a lot. That respect goes both ways, but I will not let my employees, and you should not let yours, talk about the customers in a bad tone behind their back, because that sets the culture, that sets the attitude, that sets the framework for something you don't want to see, which is poor client retention, for churn, because the client will pick up on this through their actions and deeds, and they'll leave. So I'm going to briefly touch upon each department's role in very, very 60,000 foot level, because tomorrow we're going to talk about each department individually. We're going to, well, not all tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the marketing department. The next day I think we're going to talk about product development team and sales. And the following day we're going to talk about everybody else. Okay? I think that's what we're going to do. Yeah. Operations and the rest. So we're going to talk about the product development team, because particularly small startups, but whether it's small manufacturing or a small B2B SaaS, the B2B company, the CEO founder started his business with a vision, an understanding, a belief of what he wanted his company to be, how he wanted his company to evolve, and what he believed was the right course of action. And during the beta stage, during the early stages, he ruled the roost. It was absolutely how things were and should be how things were. It's his company. He should do this. But once you go from being a beta to a company, a product where people rely upon your product or service to be part of their business, you now have to change your philosophy as a business owner, as a CEO, as a founder. It can no longer be what you want exclusively. Yes, your vision's important, and it should always be important, but you need to listen to your customers. I'm not talking building everything anybody customer wants, but if there's a collective need, a collective understanding, a collective desire by a number of your customers, you better listen. You better pay attention. We're going to talk about that and some other real strategies, some pet peeves I've seen where founders, CEOs have blown up their company. And we're going to talk about those tomorrow, because they're real and they're problematic. One of the biggest roles a department has is the marketing department. The marketing department has a huge role. In fact, when I was breaking out the relationship we had, marketing gets their own day. Okay, so they get their own day tomorrow. Okay, that's how important they are. But marketing's role starts at the very beginning, before a customer's a customer, before a customer's a prospect. When you're doing your buyer personas, you need to understand what a customer is, another stage in that buyer persona journey. You need to understand what they need to see and hear, and what information they need to get on a regular basis to remain satisfied customers, to buy and purchase upsells when there's upsells opportunities, okay? And eventually becomes evangelists and brand advocates for you. You need to map all that out and create that content and distribute that content in the form and fashion that they want to see or need to see. They're no different than any other stage of the buyer's journey. In fact, I'd argue they're one of the most important stages of the buyer's journey. We're going to talk tomorrow to specific, and I've got a number of specifics that the marketing department needs to do. Let's talk about the sales department. Yeah, the sales department is great for bringing on the client. That's their role. That's their duty. And during that process, if they do consultative sales, they build a relationship with that client, a very strong bond, a trusting bond. And what happens? Well, as soon as that sale happens, they may pass it off through an onboarding, but then they don't speak to the client, talk to the client, engage with the client until it's time for a renewal. And by that time, the client's like, who are you and why should I listen to you? You dropped me. I thought we had a relationship. You dropped me. You just want me for my money. That relationship between sales and the customer has to maintain and be nurtured through their entire program they're a part of as you, a customer. But the problem you've had and the reason it doesn't happen is sales is not compensated for that. They're not compensated for maintaining a relationship. They're compensated for bringing on new clients. So people, how you're compensated will dictate your behavior. So as a company, you need to change the compensation structure. You need to reward and provide a measure where those salespeople are rewarded for continuing that relationship. Now, part of that's going to be they get upsells possibilities. Part of it's going to be renewals. Part of it's going to be referrals. But there's got to be additional compensation, because it's in your best interest as the company for that relationship to be maintained, nurtured, and grown. Once sales is done, usually the operations department that picks up and react and deals with the customer on a day-to-day basis. And operations notoriously not paying much attention to the customer. They're worried about the product, they're worried about the sequence, the workflows, all those other things. But there needs to be mechanism starting with the onboarding, starting from the first relationship, starting for how they're onboarded, how they interact with operations need to be nurtured. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Operations is quick because that's a day-to-day engagement. Customer support. By the time you get a customer reaching out to customer support, there's always a problem, already an issue, already a concern. Things are not going well. They're not calling them to check on the time of day or to say hello. They're calling because something's not working. And unfortunately, we live in an age now where we put barriers, we put friction. We talk about eliminating friction in the sales process. That's a big deal. Eliminate friction. There should be the easiest point for you, point A to B. You don't have to extra clicks, don't have to do extra things. You want to make it easier than make a sale. We understand that in sales. We get it. We've done it. The same has to apply in customer support. We put up so much friction with the client getting his answer. I experienced this today. I had a question, and what I do, I go to the website and there's not a person to speak to. I click on the chat box, and who am I speaking to? A bot. Now they advertise this is the AI enhanced bot, the best of the best. I spent a half hour talking to an ignorant bot who didn't understand my problem, couldn't get me to a real person. I spent a half hour trying to negotiate this. Finally, I got the opportunity. No phone call to make, no place I can call. Finally, I got, speak to a person, click on this button. I have to leave them an email. We'll get back to you. Well, they did finally get back to me. By the time they did, you know what I had done? I went and looked at their competitors because I was frustrated. We cannot put friction out with respect to customer support. We're going to talk about ways customer support needs to operate to improve themselves tomorrow. But a pet peeve is the friction you're causing. This should be a human-to-human interaction. Now, I'm not talking about there's never a point for bot. There are. For quick answer, quick responses, quick things, absolutely. But once you get back that first 60 seconds and it doesn't respond, can't figure it out, there should be a person available to talk to now. A real person. By phone. Okay? Or by chat too, but a real person. If you're not doing that, you're creating friction. The same type of friction you want to avoid in the sales process. You're creating it for your customers. Finally, I'm just going to mention one of the most important departments is the C-suite. Now, yes, the C-suite we all get is supposed to lay down the framework, the understanding. We need to say that it's important to have customer support. But the C-suite has actual hands-on responsibilities as well. Not just setting up the groundwork, the framework, and the understanding, but hands-on. Imagine how powerful it would be if you're sitting at your desk working and the president of HubSpot calls you on the phone, you're using the product, and asks you, how's it going? Is it working well for you? Is there any advice you have? My goodness. What you would be telling everybody, number one, you'd be giving them thumbs up and praises for the fact that they reached out to you. Now, I'm not talking about that HubSpot has to do that. I don't see that ever happening, but there are ways you can do that. Smaller businesses certainly should do that. But even big businesses are doing that as well. They're having online engagement, online chats, spaces where in Twitter spaces where they're meeting with the people, talking to the people, getting firsthand feedback. CEOs should be doing that if they really want to grow their company. There's no excuse for a small and medium-sized business not to be doing this. I get it if you're at enterprise level, why you may not be doing it. But if you're a small and medium-sized business and you want to grow, want to create retention, you should be doing that without question. So now I've kind of rattled through my pet peeves today of some of the things. Tomorrow we're actually going to get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to hit where the rubber hits the road. We're going to talk about the actual actionable ways that marketing and what marketing needs to be doing at each stage of that customer's experience. Dealing with sales, dealing with operations, dealing with product support, dealing with CEO. We're going to talk about the marketing's role in each of those areas. And it's huge. Day after that, we're going to talk about sales and product development. Day after that, we'll talk operations, customer support, and the C-suite. So we've got a few more days of talking about customer support. If you found this valuable, interesting, please join us tomorrow for the next meeting, next video. If you found this valuable, please like, please subscribe, please follow, please comment, whatever's appropriate in the channel you see. If you have any questions, you can go to our website, read our blog, or you can go to our website, click on a form, contact us, ask for me or anybody else to speak to. You can call us. We got a phone number sitting out there. We answer it, and we will respond as a human to human. I promise you. There's also an email we can refill out, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours, if not the same day. So, until tomorrow, I thank you for being here. I thank you for your time. I've enjoyed it. Hope you have too. See you soon.